On behalf of the National E-Learning Center in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, I would like to welcome you all and thank you for joining us for today's webinar titled The Role of Sandbox in Driving Innovation in Education. My name is Zaid Rakib. In this session, we will explore how artificial intelligence is reshaping digital learning and enabling new models of innovation in education. We will also highlight global trends and emerging developments in AI and digital learning, and share key insights from the World Bank's study on the AI sandbox in Saudi Arabia. In addition, we will examine the impact of innovation on skills, opportunities, and the broader education ecosystem, and learn from practical experiences and real-world lessons emerging from the AI sandbox. We are pleased to bring together a distinguished group of experts with both national and international perspectives. Joining us today, we have Dr. Adele Pushparatnam, Senior Education Specialist at the World Bank with extensive experience across global education systems, focusing on teaching quality and early childhood development. Mr. Josh Weiss, Director of Technology and Innovation at the Stanford Accelerator for Learning, working at the intersection of education, research, and emerging technologies to drive innovation and learning. Ms. Sarah Graham, CEO of Prism EdTech, with over 20 years of experience in AI-driven assessment and digital learning innovation. Mr. Mu'min Al-Hamid, founder of Kenda AI, a digital transformation strategist specializing in AI and emerging technologies in education. And our very own Dr. Fahad Lanazi, Director of Knowledge Excellence at the National E-Learning Center, with over 18 years of experience leading digital learning initiatives and advancing innovation in education. We are very pleased to have you all with us today. To guide our discussion, it is my pleasure to welcome Dr. Shwetlana Sabarwal, Lead Education Specialist at the World Bank, a leading economist and author of key global reports on digital skills and the future of work, who will be moderating this session. Before I hand it over to Dr. Sabarwal, I would like to invite Dr. Fahad Lanazi to share a few open remarks. Dr. Fahad.
Alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Thank you, Zaid, for the introductions, and good afternoon and good morning to everyone here today. It's my pleasure being with you in this session regarding our topic today and discussing the role of Sandbox in driving innovation in education, and particularly as we are discussing the role of AI in reshaping the future of education. So, as you know, a few years ago, AI have moved from being a future concept to be a reality, and today we are witnessing a lot of AI applications in different sectors, including educations. Even in educations, we've seen a lot of AI utilizations and use, whether it's in K-12, higher ed, and lifelong learning, and also training. And at the same time, we are seeing an increased interest, whether it's from the system level or from the individual level, to use AI, whether to personalize learning or to use AI in enhancing assessment. And even faculties and some teachers today are using or integrating AI into their teaching strategies. Also, from the learner perspective, we've seen a lot of students who are using AI, whether to, let's say, do their homeworks, brainstorm, doing some projects. So it's there, it's happening. At the same time, on the other hand, there are kind of challenges and limitations and some concerns that's been discussed, whether in webinars, conferences. We've seen a lot of articles and academic research papers who are raising the concerns about the privacy of the data and the risk that might come around the use of AI, which means that we need some kind of environment where we can test and validate these technologies without any risk. So in this regard, and beside the mandate of the National E-Learning Centers as a regulator and quality assurance, and also as a playing the role of enabler in the digital ecosystems, we are working at the National E-Learning Centers in some initiatives that promote innovations that aims to accelerate the adoptions of emerging technologies, and AI is the top of it. So let's say almost a year ago, we have launched our AI Sandbox in educations, where we bring together institutions, researchers, and the AI solution providers to work together in a safe and regulated environment where we can test and validate the solutions to find out what works, what doesn't works, and has an impact, or what could be scaled or what could not be. So this help the decision makers whether to adapt the AI or not, because we've seen a lot of debates about can we use technology or can we use AI in educations or not. So the problem is not the technology. The problem is how we adapt it, how we integrate it. So the initiative has been launched a year ago, as I mentioned, and up to date we have up to 30 applicants, AI solutions that's been tested and validated. Some of these solutions had already completed the journey and graduated, and some of them in progress. And in this regard, we have collaborated with the World Bank to help us evaluate this initiative, to more understand what is the impact of such initiative, and also to understand how such a model that can be support innovation in education and could be scale it up, and also to be showcasing with other nations and education systems. So today we are very pleased to have a distinguished speakers who will be sharing some insights about the study with us. And also we have a broader perspective that comes from different international speakers who will be sharing with us about the best of practice when it comes to the use of AI. So now, please allow me to leave the floor for our experts to take us deeper into this discussions, and I hope everyone find the sessions insightful and helpful. And the mic is yours, Lena. Thank you.
Hello, everybody. Good afternoon. Good morning to some of us who are in the US and other places. So it's a huge thrill for me to be here, honestly. And I am so grateful, especially to you, Dr. Fahad, for this great partnership between National E-Learning Center and the World Bank, and for co-hosting this event together. It's been such a privilege. I'm going to share some slides. I hope that works. So let's see. And here are the slides. Okay. So the task for me was to do a framing presentation very quickly. And to do that, I'm going to take you to an unexpected place. I'm going to take you to London in 2016, okay? And we are in a financial regulator's office. And what we see when we are there is that they're very confused and kind of unhappy, because what they're seeing is that the financial technology, the type of financial products and offerings are innovating at a pace that's too fast for the regulators to keep up with, right? So things are changing all the time, new things are coming up, and the regulators cannot keep pace with it. So they have two choices. Either they block the innovation, so they tell the innovators to stop innovating until they can catch up, or they let those innovations go through kind of recklessly and hope for the best, right? And neither of those options are good options, I'm sure you can imagine, right? So instead, they come up with a different kind of concept, which is this idea of a sandbox. So the idea is that they will give these innovations a very contained space to try out, right? But this contained space will be comprised of real customers and real transactions. So everything that will be happening will be real, but it will be contained so that the risk is bounded. And the regulators will be studying what is happening and kind of figuring out what is working, what is not working, what's going wrong, right? And this idea of creating this contained space and a systematic mechanism to figure out how things work ended up being so powerful and so enticing that within 3 years, 50 countries had adopted this model, right? And the global fintech investment had tripled. And you would imagine that with such a big tripling, things would be tricky for customers. But in fact, consumer experience improved, but also consumer protection improved, right? So what the Sandbox did was it took these two forces that are often considered to be in opposition to each other, to be kind of conflicting, which is innovation on one side and regulation and evaluation on the other side, and they made them complementary instead of oppositional, right? And so the proposition here today is that edtech in 2026 is what fintech used to be in 2016. And we are facing a similar kind of proliferation and acceleration of innovation that is happening at a pace that's just too fast for regulators and evaluators and educators to keep pace with. And so the time is perfect and has been perfect for a while for sandboxes in education, right? And Dr. Fahad alluded to this already. When you look at the global trends, you see that AI is already in classrooms, right? It's already there. So about 92% of students globally claim to use AI tools. Now, there are two parts to this that I think are very interesting. One is that about 15 years ago, when there was a new edtech product or technology, there was a big gap between the rates of adoption in rich countries or advanced countries and in less advanced countries. But that is no longer the case, right? So the correlation between per capita GDP and adoption of edtech, especially adoption of AI, is now very low, right? So people from all over the world are using AI. And the likelihood of them using AI is not significantly different in rich and not rich countries. The other important thing is just the rate of change. So now we have 92% students in 2025-26 using AI, but it used to be just 66% a couple of years ago. So the rate at which the adoption has increased has been really exponential. Now, the other side of the spectrum is that only about 37% of lower secondary teachers were using AI, right? So the rate of AI use for their work was significantly higher among students than among teachers. Now, here again, there is a big gap across countries, a big difference across countries. And in fact, OECD came up with a report that shows that, again, you have countries like China and Singapore and UAE, even countries like Nigeria and India, which have high rates of AI use, relatively speaking, by teachers. And then you have countries like Japan and France that have low rates of AI use among teachers. And this is a very interesting phenomena, like what's happening with teachers. But the truth is that in many contexts, there's a big gap between the rate at which teachers are using and understanding AI and students. And also, a lot of teachers are actually very fearful about the way AI is being used by students. And they really worry that the AI use is actually reducing the level of education proficiency and education attainment that students are actually receiving. So this means that the risks that Dr. Fahad mentioned are actually quite big. And there is another risk that we often overlook, which is that if you're honest with ourselves, a lot of edtech advancement has happened over the last 50 years, right? And if you remember, if you think back, there've been MOOCs, there've been digital whiteboards, there've been all kinds of innovations. And there hasn't been really a lot of systematic learning. But more than that, if you look at the average impacts of these edtech interventions, it's usually close to zero. So you have a few high impact, a few low impact, a few negative impact interventions with all kind of averages to about 0.07 standard deviations of learning impact, which is close to zero. So this is billions of dollars spent without any real kind of grasp and understanding of what works and where should money be spent. So this is what makes sandboxes such an important concept in education right now. And one part of this is not only minimizing the risks of like bad technology and bad products for students, but also to identify the good ones, right? So what makes this story kind of really compelling is that amidst all the noise and all the, bales of hay, you have a few diamonds. So there have been a few kind of studies that have shown tremendous transformative impact of edtech. So one example that I always like to quote is the MindSpark technology that was tried in India, where within 4 months, it's a personalized learning system for students. And they tried it with poor, struggling students in Delhi. And within 4 months, they were able to have zero point 0.4 standard deviation improvement in learning, which is more than a year of learning. So more than a year of learning in 4 months, especially for the underprivileged students. And you have a similar study from Nigeria where AI chatbots for remedial education showed tremendous impact. So there are these really strong cases, but they are lost in all the noise, right? So Dr. Fahad already kind of alluded to this, but the main problem is that there is not a credible selection mechanism that allows evaluators and educators and policymakers to very quickly identify what is the right product or idea to bank on and what is not, right? And Sandbox provides that good selection mechanism. Now, I want to spend just a second kind of trying to distill a little bit the reality from the myth. And I'm very glad that we have people like Dr. Josh, Mr. Josh coming up soon, who's going to be able to talk about it much more intelligently than me. But a few kind of distinctions that always strike me is that a lot of people think of a sandbox just as a safe space to try things. It is that, but it is also a very structured mechanism to figure out what works and what doesn't work. And it's not just a pilot, right? It's a feedback infrastructure. So it's not like you're trying something one time and then it's like it's creating kind of an ongoing dialogue, or it should create an ongoing dialogue and an ongoing feedback infrastructure that builds. So it builds the past information in as new information comes in. And it's kind of a cumulative journey. And finally, I think the one thing that always irritates me, let me say, is that when people talk about Sandbox, they're mostly talking about encouraging innovation. Yes, it is about encouraging innovation, but at the end of the day, it's about helping and protecting the consumer, right? And this is why I think the path that National E-Learning Center has taken is so inspiring, because we are really talking about improving the consumer experience, which in our case, for education are the students, right? How can we help them learn better, and how can we help them have a better experience? So wrapping up, I want to talk about like what's to me the frontier, the next kind of frontier from where we are now. So you will hear a lot more about where we are now, about what National E-Learning Center has been doing from Adele and from others. But I think what comes next is to think about going from sort of testing products and ideas to kind of a more system learning approach, which is basically not just what worked, but what made it work, right? And so what can we identify some key enabling conditions for AI use in classrooms or for EdTech use? And what does that look like? Does that look like just complementary investments? Does that look like training? Does that look like mindset shifts? Does that look like parental engagement? So I think that would be a very, very truly important and consequential conversation that people like National E-Learning Center and Stanford and so on can lead. The second thing is to think also very proactively about equity. So how is equity built into the graduation criteria of the sandbox? So a lot of times the graduation criteria can be very fixated on the average learning impacts, but I think we all know that the journey for the students who are struggling is much harder. And so if we build that into the graduation criteria, I think that would be very revolutionary. And finally, this idea of a network of sandboxes. If we could have more sandboxes in other parts of the world kind of come and talk to each other and build some harmonization so that the learning kind of explodes. And here again, I think some of the people across the table today can lead that conversation. So with that, I am very delighted to Oh, I forgot to make one point. So one last point I would say is that not only do we have a lot to learn in the education community, I think what National E-Learning Center is doing can also be a model for other institutions, other policy and governance institutions in Saudi and elsewhere, because it teaches an institution how to learn. Like you learn how to learn. So I think that would be something that would be quite powerful for other actors. Okay, now I'm done. So with that, I am very happy to hand over to, oh no, I forgot. I think it's
Me.
Adele.
Yes, that's
Yes,
right.
over to you, Adele. Thank you.
Thank you, Shritlana. So let me get my screen up. All right, so thank you all very much for having me here today, and I'm delighted to share a little bit about the specific experience of Saudi Arabia's AI Sandbox for digital learning, and hopefully this will help make a little bit more concrete some of the ideas that Shritlana has already put on the table, add a few more to the mix, and then bring us into a good discussion throughout the rest of this webinar. So let me start off by asking you to imagine that you've spent 2 years building an AI tutoring tool like Shritlana described. It personalizes learning, it adapts to each student, it works in Arabic, and you know it can help. But when you approach a school, a university, or a ministry, they ask you, where has this been tested? And what is the evidence that you have that this works? And you may have limited evidence to show, not because your tool doesn't work, but because you haven't yet had a door in to the system. And now if you flip the scenario and you put yourself in the position of a ministry official, you may receive 15 AI pitches a week, but you have no way of knowing which of these pitches are safe, pedagogically sound, or even legal under your data governance rules. So to be safe, maybe you say no to all of them. This is the gap. And here we see an AI developer building a tool to support teaching and learning needs, but they need access to real students, real teachers, and real feedback. On the other side, we have students, teachers, and policymakers that need evidence that the tool works, that it's safe, and that it fits their context. So it's not a technology gap, but rather a gap in trust, access, and evidence. The AI Sandbox for Digital Learning, or the AISB, was built to bridge this gap. Led by the NELC, it's strongly grounded in Saudi Arabia's Vision 2030, which places human capital development, digital transformation, and innovation at the center of national development. Before we look at results, it's first worth understanding the logic driving them, because the sandbox is built on a theory of change. It starts with enablers, the NELC's mandate, a supportive national policy environment, access to digital infrastructure, and a network of partnerships with government, universities, and global technology firms. Those enablers power two core functions of ISB: innovation testing in real educational settings and capacity building across the education ecosystem. Those functions, in turn, produce outputs: AI solutions that are piloted, partnerships that have been formed, and evidence that has been generated. Those outputs then shift conditions over time, leading to outcomes such as more AI solutions being available, institutions that are more capable of adopting AI, and a stronger evidence base to guide policy. And all of that then feeds into the long-term impact, which are the ultimate goals of the AISB: better learning outcomes, a more prepared workforce, and an education system that contributes to a knowledge-based economy. At the heart of the sandbox is a simple idea, and I think this adds to some of the points that Shritlana has already raised, and goes beyond that. And it is that the two core functions of the AI sandbox, innovation and capacity building, must go hand in hand. The education system can only demand and absorb AI innovation if student, teachers, and education leaders understand the promise for AI for tackling real challenges identified within the education system. And it's this demand that really should be driving the development of AI solutions. It is due to this deep engagement with the education ecosystem that the Sandbox is also able to deploy a needs-driven approach. So in one of their first major innovation challenges, the AISB partnered with Saudi Arabia's Ministry of Human Resources and Social Development to address a challenge many countries face: how to better align skill supply with labor market demands. So they collaborated to put out an open call. They received 228 applications. 22 of these were selected to pilot their solutions in real settings with real students, real data, real feedback. And these pilots are now ongoing, with each team receiving mentorship, technical support, and access to institutional partners that they would have found very difficult to reach on their own. At the end of the pilot, each team will document their findings, and successful solutions will then graduate from the AI Sandbox. The Sandbox is already showing strong results. Over 634 ideas have been submitted, reflecting a genuine demand from innovators. 27 solutions have been admitted for testing, with 8 graduated so far and another 15 projected to graduate soon. And I'm very excited that we'll learn more about these solutions in much more detail very soon. Through the AISB capacity building activities, they've reached nearly 3,000 participants across educators, administrators, policymakers, and these capacity building activities have reached a 94% satisfaction rate, which is really high. The AISB was aiming to build 4 institutional partnerships in 2025 and has already established 22. And this is not just limited to actors within the Saudi context. People from more than 55 countries have engaged with the AI Sandbox thus far. So together, these numbers really signal that the AISB is indeed meeting a need across the innovation and education ecosystems. But perhaps more interesting than these numbers is the question of how the AI Sandbox is creating change in the education system in a relatively short period of time. And as already mentioned, the World Bank is carrying out this evaluation of the AI Sandbox. And as part of that process, we've carried out interviews with key stakeholders. We've done a document review and an analysis of AI Sandbox design and implementation data. And through that process, we have so far identified 5 mechanisms that help explain how the AI Sandbox is creating change within the education and innovation ecosystems. First is trust. When a solution is admitted to the AI Sandbox, it acts as a signal to schools and universities. It says, this has been vetted, you can engage with it safely, and that signal, from what we heard, is worth more than any marketing budget for many of the innovators. Second is coordination. So the AISB brings together actors who are unlikely to naturally find each other. A startup in the UK, a university in Jeddah, a ministry department in Riyadh. One of the key value adds that the AISB brings is that it creates this table where they can all come around and sit together and collaborate. The third is access. As already mentioned, getting into a live classroom to test an AI tool is one of the most challenging things that an edtech startup might face. The AISB opens that door, but again, as already mentioned, with ethical oversight, data governance, and institutional buy-in already in place. Fourth is implementation learning. Many innovators who enter the Sandbox don't fully understand how the Saudi education system works. The procurement rules, the pedagogical standards, the governance requirements. The mentorship that they receive from the NELC through the AI Sandbox transforms not just their product, but also their understanding of the ecosystem that they're trying to serve. And to go back to a point that Shalana raised, the capacity building activities that are carried out through the AI Sandbox contribute towards defining the knowledge, skills, and attitudes that educators, learners, and professionals need to effectively engage with these AI-enabled solutions. And finally, there's the evidence. When a pilot ends, there's data. And it's this data that allows a school principal or ministry official to say, yes, we'll adopt this. And it also allows the NELC to take an evidence-based approach to refining AI policies and guidelines to ensure safe and effective implementation. So all in all, the ISB is helping Saudi Arabia move from interest in AI for education to structured evidence-based adoption. It's creating the conditions for innovation to be tested, trusted, and then scaled within the education system, thus directly supporting Vision 2030's ambition to build a knowledge-based economy. In a short time, the AISB has proven that a structured government-backed innovation environment can catalyze AI innovation in education, and the next steps are to move from pilots to scale, from individual success stories to systemic change. And it looks like the journey is just getting started. So with that, let me stop sharing my screen and invite Sarah Graham, who will be sharing more about one of the solutions that has gone to the AI Sandbox. So over to you, Sarah.
Many thanks, Adele. Okay, let me just try and share the screen. Excellent. Super. Thank you very much for inviting me to present today. So my name is Sarah Graham, and I'm the founder of Prism EdTech. We're the home of Smart Marker. We've been involved in the National E-Learning Centre AI pilot for a few months now. And as you can probably hear and see, I'm based from the UK, and we came to the region interested in innovation with the opportunity for impact. And certainly, hopefully, what I'm going to talk to you about now is how we've experienced that through the AI Sandbox, and hopefully continue our journey in the Saudi Arabia region. So my background is just over 20 years working in the intersection of education and technology. My focus has been on scalable, high-quality assessment solutions. And Smart Marker is a direct response to some of the biggest challenges that we've seen globally in education today. Assessment remains one of the most resource-intensive and inconsistent parts of education, and we've built Smart Marker to change that. Across institutions globally, we see 4 key challenges. Manual marking is extremely time-consuming. There's inconsistency between assessments and assessors. Learners often receive delayed or limited feedback, and institutions lack real-time insight into performance data. These issues don't just affect efficiency, they impact learner outcomes, staff workload, and overall quality assessment. Smart Marker has been designed to directly address these challenges. It's an AI-powered platform that automates marking processes, delivers real-time, personalised feedback at scale, provides dashboards for educators and institutions, and ensures a full audit trail for compliance and quality assurance. So rather than replacing educators, it enhances their capacity and improves consistency across the board. What makes Smart Marker particularly powerful is its architecture and flexibility. It uses a multi-agent AI approach, meaning different AI components handle different aspects of the marking process. It's aligned to institutional rubrics, which is critical for maintaining academic standards. Currently, it supports English, with Arabic in development as part of our next phase. It also integrates seamlessly with existing learning management systems and is moving towards localized hosting and an academic-specific language model. Smart Marker delivers value across the entire education ecosystem. For students, it provides faster, more meaningful feedback. For academic staff, it reduces workload and improves consistency. And for institutions, it enables better data insight and operational efficiency. And importantly, It supports quality assurance bodies, governments, and policymakers by providing transparency and auditability in assessment. A key part of our journey has been the AI Sandbox environment. This has given us real-world testing space where we could pilot with actual learners and assessments, where we can continuously refine marking rubrics and safely experiment with AI behaviour. This was critical in moving from concept to a robust, usable solution. The Sandbox has allowed us to implement iterative marking cycles. This means first marking by AI, human review, refinement of the rubric, and then a second marking cycle. Through this, we've been able to validate 3 critical areas: accuracy, consistency, and quality of feedback. It's also enabled us to collaborate with experts and alignment with local international benchmarks. Through this process, we've identified 3 key insights. First, AI must operate with a human in the loop. It's about augmentation, not replacement. Second, rubric design is absolutely critical. The quality of input decides the quality of output. And third, feedback is transformational. When done well, it significantly enhances learning outcomes. So, looking ahead, Smart Marker is positioned now as a result of the AI Sandbox to drive real impact. We're aiming to support digital transformation in education, contribute to human capital development, enhance lifelong learning and educational quality. We've already secured angel investment. We're currently raising seed investment, and our next steps include developing an Arabic version for the Saudi Arabian market and expanding existing and new partnerships with institutions globally. Ultimately, our vision is to make high quality, scalable assessment accessible across the education sector. Thank you very much for your time. I think my colleague is next. I'm unsure how we pass over to them.
That would be Mu'min, I believe.
Yep. Can you give me access for the share screen, please?
There we go. Over to you. Thank you.
Thank you. Just 1 minute. Okay. Hello. I'm Mu'min. I'm founder and CEO of Kinda. Just a quick brief of Kinda. Kinda is an AI powered digital learning platform, experience interactive and game-based learning. An approach that it's strongly used today with the students. We focus just here. We focus two key challenge in educational sector. The first thing, it's a limitation, availability of Arabic support tools that enable teacher to easily create engaging and interactive educational content. And the second things for the students, especially currently generation who are highly engaging technology and interactive experience that shift required educational method in this time. And Okay, just to start the video. Okay. And this is where Kinda comes in. Our platform focus on empowering both teacher and students. Student engaging with the interactive learning mission where you can play and learn at the same time. And the teacher can create interactive educational content just for the one click through the AI platform. Okay, and the platform is not just supporting the Arabic language and focusing for the Arabic language, it's supported for multi-language. And this is the platform as educational based learning from everything. And the student can play with a favorite game. It's not just for the one game to learn stylish. Okay. And I would like to appreciate for the National E-Learning Center for their efforts through AI Sandbox, which help us research and development, technical space and implementation, and focus some things for the educational sector because the educational sectors now it's just not about behavior for the student. No, it's just about everything for the teacher, students, and so on. And I highly encourage startup to apply this program AI Sandbox to help faster innovation and accelerate the growth of educational sector. And thank you so much.
Thank you, Mu'min. I believe now it's for Josh.
Hi, everyone. Good morning. Good afternoon, wherever you are. I'm coming in from California, so it's a nice morning over here. I want to thank the World Bank National E-Learning Center. This is really an inspiring session with some amazing work, and I think I will learn as much from you as you might from me. I've been asked for just a few minutes to think about, to comment on a few things here, and then I think we're going to kick it over to a panel, so you can be ready for that as well. So Sandbox, I love that term. I was picking my daughter up from school just yesterday. I walk in, where is she? She's in the sandbox. What is she doing? She's making things that might stand up for a few minutes, might fall down, and at the end, she tells her friends about all her little experiments with what she tried to make. I think that is the perfect term for what we're doing here, although we're probably doing something on a grander scale than just school level sandboxes here. So I'm the director of technology and innovation at Stanford Accelerator for Learning. Let me speak for just a minute about what I do to frame my remarks. So the Stanford Accelerator for Learning, we are at Stanford, we are inside of the School of Education. We are kind of a startup environment you can think of, but not for products, rather for research. A lot of times at schools of education and academia in general, you have amazing ideas, but they don't always reach the rest of the world. Even in California, a lot of the schools around us do not benefit from the research being done at places like Stanford. So the Stanford Accelerator for Learning, our goal is to change that, is to make research and innovation that is driven by research, much of which I hear today as well, helping that to go beyond the walls of Stanford into more places. So I'm thrilled to be here with you today. A few statistics from us that might be interesting. We are a funder as well as a supporter of early stage research and projects. We've currently funded 190 projects through things like seed grant and challenges and design sessions and all these types of things. Just this past year, two of our projects actually won the top awards at recent conferences. So we're starting to see some really interesting successes with projects that are lifting off. And I can also speak to projects that haven't lifted off, but have also benefited the ecosystem, which is something that Svetlana and Adele have been speaking to really interestingly today. The experiments that work are just as interesting as the experiments that didn't lift off. We can learn from both of those. One last thing about the accelerator that might be interesting today. We have this group inside of the Accelerator for Learning called the Accelerator Studio. And that's actually a team that I run there. And one thing that we do is we try and set up the enabling conditions, as I've heard it referred to today, for trust and also expertise with groups that are just starting this journey. So I'm going to talk a little bit about that over my talk here for about 5 minutes here. So 4 quick points to talk on. One is what is the role that context plays? And I just want to underscore that point that other presenters have been making as well. When I say context, I mean, what does it look like for your local conditions and your local community? And nobody knows that the way that you do, right? So first of all, it's important to really raise up and value the context that you understand about your own community and the way that global problems look in a local context, right? First of all, that is important to every sandbox. In my experience, valuing your own community's unique knowledge actually yields the most interesting solutions locally. And then on this kind of institutional metacognition question that I think Svetlana posed really interestingly, you can share with others about their own local context, and all of a sudden you have these amazing global solutions that are starting with local problems as well. In the education world, we like to think of this as the work of Paulo Freire sometimes, if you're interested in him. He's a Brazilian educational researcher that said, start with local problems and then solve globally. The other is, how do you discover the problems you want to solve? To me, this is the key to the whole process. If you're addressing the same problems over and over, is that really doing justice to the rich set of problems and solution makers in your community? It's probably not. One way that we've addressed that at the Stanford Accelerator for Learning, and I think you may see this in your own work as well, is finding a diverse set of problems and allowing you to sit in that diverse set of problems before even trying to solve anything. And this is really uncomfortable because you want to get to the solution. Humans are geared towards solving the problems. But what we've actually found is the sessions where people can share the challenge or the problem that they want to focus on is worth more time than you would expect. One way we've done this at the Accelerator for Learning is through what we call impact exchange sessions. This is where you have people who have done an amazing startup sit in the same room with people who are just starting their journey on solving a problem. And what happens is you get this really interesting cross-sharing of people who have taken an enormous problem space and slowly narrowed it into a problem that they think they are uniquely positioned to solve. But starting with the very wide lens first, and then stepping in with somebody who is at that very wide moment themselves and thinking about how to narrow as well, right? It's much easier to do that than to start at a problem that's very narrow and try to get wide later on, which a lot of times startups have to pivot and find another problem. It's much harder than just thinking about the total problem space. So maybe thinking about exchange spaces where people can be honestly a little bit vulnerable about the top 5 problems they would like to address in a sandbox environment, and then getting feedback on which is the one that they are most uniquely positioned to solve. Another overarching question here that I might pose to the group as we enter the discussion in a minute. What does it mean to be an enabler, which is some of the language I've heard today from our presenters. Dr. Fahd set out nicely that one of the goals of any viable sandbox is to set up an enabling environment with enablers inside of it. So you almost have a wrapper around these individual enablers trying to do their work. I mean, I'll use a food metaphor here. I think of enablers as kind of people working with like like a pressure cooker, like when you're cooking like lentils or beans, right? You're not checking under the hood every 3 minutes. Is the bean cooking? Is the bean cooking? You're going to ruin the beans, right? What you need to do is talk to somebody ahead of time. Hey, what is the temperature that works usually for you, and how much time do you wait? It might be unique to your situation, but you get a general idea of every 10 minutes, check on the beans, right? And then you have to sit back. You have to go to the other room. You have to scroll Instagram for a couple of minutes. And then once you hear that whistle coming off of the pressure cooker, if you're using an old school pressure cooker like my mom used, then you walk over and say, okay, that whistle is telling me this is a moment to check in. How's the cooking going, right? The hardest part of that for me as someone who is an enabler in my ecosystem is stepping back and trusting. It's really, really hard. But there's a couple of ways you can really make that happen. I want to make this concrete for you as well. One is understanding who is the auditing group and who is the support group. I think you have to separate those out. We are in Silicon Valley. There is a lot of auditors around here. There are people who will evaluate the quality of a product, right? I'm not sure that's always the best person to be the enabler, because when somebody walks in the room with an idea, they're going to be asking in their own head, what does this person want to hear? Do they want to hear that everything is going well because they're evaluating me? Or do they want to hear that some things are going well, but there are actually some challenges that I could use some support on, right? And so in our organization, we've set up an entirely separate team, this Accelerator Studio, that is not evaluating, but is simply there as the support. And we've actually targeted 4 areas that are unique to the problems that our sandbox is trying to solve, right? Remember, we're trying to make education, research, and solutions go beyond the walls of Stanford. And so we have 4 specializations that our support team focuses on, and yours might be different. Ours are technology, research, learning design, and partnerships. Those are the 4 key support needs that people come to us and say, I'm not 100% sure I'm doing this partnership correctly. Can I get some help? Right? And then you can step back and you can let the pressure cooker cook, right? The third one here, and I know I have about maybe a minute and a half here, so I'll try and wrap this up. The third is, what is the right speed? In sandbox environments, it's very tempting to go fast all the time. That doesn't always produce the best results, especially when you're trying to do interinstitutional work. You're working on this metacognitive level that Svetlana mentioned, where you're trying to step back and analyze, how are we learning together as a community? In the US, regulations vary state by state. It's extremely decentralized, right? So testing regulatory compliance is always a hurdle. What we've found, and I think others in this room will as well, is it's best to pilot first with local knowledge of regulations and then jumping out into new markets. That's number one. And maybe a less obvious one is, what is the speed of mindset shift and skill set shift? And you have to separate those out, right? Skill set shift is something like, I'm learning how to use AI to develop things faster. I'm learning how to broker partnerships in a more productive way, right? The mindset shift is when you're at the beginning of this building process. What does it feel like to be a designer of a solution? And what we found, even in a place like Silicon Valley, where people come to be entrepreneurs, and design thinking was made at Stanford, so entrepreneurialism is in the air everywhere. Even there, a lot of folks don't see themselves as designers. of their own solutions. It's really a mindset shift, right? And it can be incredibly intimidating. So we actually have a session we've made just for this. We just did this in Oman back in January, actually. We did it at UNESCO last year. I know it can work around the world. We call it Flash Lab. And the idea is for 2 hours, can we turn a room of, let's say, 40 people into R&D mindset kind of people, research and development type of people, right? So you're just exploring solutions in a vulnerable space, giving people 2 hours to just try on that role is a huge step in them later on thinking of themselves as the type of person that could be in a sandbox, right? So you almost need like a little pressure chamber, right? If you think about like when you're diving down in the ocean, you can't go too fast. You can't go right away to the bottom of the ocean. You have to allow people to get a feeling for what the next depth feels like the whole time, and then talk about it with each other. Oh, this is hard. This is something I'm challenged with. How did you get past this part of your problem? And all of a sudden, they've built the muscle memory to do that later on themselves. The last thing I'll say is
Sorry, Josh, I'm so sorry to cut you off. I think we are a bit over time. Can you come back to that in the panel? Is that okay?
absolutely.
Okay. No, this was fascinating. I just want to make sure we stick to time. We're running a little behind, but we'll try to make that up as we go in the panel. Zaid, did you want to say something or should I continue
No,
with the
please
panel?
go ahead. Floor is
Okay.
yours.
Excellent. No, we have had a great set of presentations and thoughts. Everything has built on each other, and there's such a good energy. So I will now try to get you into discussion mode, and I'll be a very ruthless timekeeper, let me just say. So the way we will do this is we will do the panel with Josh, and then the two AISB beneficiaries, Moomin and Sarah. And the first question, it's a common question across all three of you. And maybe we start with Sarah responding. And the question is, do you think that AI innovation in education is more challenging than innovation in other sectors or other areas? Like, what is it that makes innovation, and especially AI related innovation in education, a particularly hard nut to crack? So everybody has like 1 to 2 minutes to respond. Over to you, Sarah. And then we go Moomin and Josh.
Amazing, thank you. So, yes, I mean, I think, as innovators in this space, I think we experience this every day. I talk to some of my peers that run technology businesses in other sectors, and a lot of their challenges in the market are commercial. And I would say, actually, in education, the commercialization of what we're doing comes right at the bottom. I would say that generally trust is our biggest factor. Certainly in my space, where we're talking about assessment as a subtopic all of its own, but obviously the intrinsic link between assessment and education. Automation of assessment, using AI, enables us to have an impact on curriculum and pedagogy that we've not been able to do before because we've not been able to iterate at the speed that technology enables us. But our biggest factor is trust, and it's trust of technology. Yes, I have competition, but it's not extensive. I might get shot down now by others on the call that feel differently. But my competition is actually human beings. In the automation field I sit in, where regulatory requirements are so high, the actual validity and importance of qualifications within each country and indeed globally are affected by our ability to assess appropriately and transparently. Now bringing into the marketplace automation brings a big risk factor. So our ability to use technology to really improve the landscape that we sit in regarding assessment is a big one. And our biggest challenge in technology is trust. So I do think that the challenge in education is quite different to the automation of other non-education areas.
Love it. Trust. Biggest competition, human beings. Very nice. Moomin, can I ask you the same question? Is AI in education much harder than innovation in other sectors?
Okay, just for the short example, okay, for I know and the AI, it's necessary for educational sector, okay, but for from my side, for the interactive learning, and if you're using the AI, you need some policy for using the AI, because the content it should be to make it approval for the educational content. And when you make some interactive games or some interactive ways to introduce the educational content, you need a too much cost to building interactive way for the educational sector. That's it.
So the policy and cost things that go together. I see. Okay, over to you, Josh. You've thought so much about it. Of course, we're looking at it a little bit from our perch within education, but what are your thoughts?
Yeah. Yeah. Is it different from other sectors? I think it has to be. I think the goal of education is not to get your credit card so you can buy a thing, which is the goal of a lot of websites. It's not to heal those who are sick, which is the goal of medicine. It's actually to cultivate the next generation of humans that will care for us. I think AI has a really interesting role in that. I don't think it's going to be just AI. I think it's going to be some mix of how we want to be treated in the future by those that we are caring for right now. I don't want to be treated just by an AI. I would like for my children to be in that mix as well. So I just think the outcome is much more challenging because we have to think about the way that we treat each other.
Very thought-provoking. I like that you took us so deep, right? So the stakes are so much higher when it's education. So I really like that. Okay, so now I go back to you, Moomin, and I'll ask Sarah the same question in a second, which is, what attracted you to AISB to come in and participate in the National E-Learning Center's AISB initiative, and what has been the most valued part of that partnership for you?
Okay, from my startup, this is the great value because we building the model training, and in this time you needed a GPU and CPU to make a LLM for my startup, and this is too much cost from my side, and this is the great value to support AI Sandbox Kinda for this software or for this technology, and this is a great value for my startup.
Excellent. Thank you. Sarah?
So I think for us, it was also about an opportunity to engage with the market that we'd not engaged with before. I've learned a lot over the last 12 months about how innovative the Saudi Arabian region is, the appetite for improvement, but also what the Sandbox has helped us with is understanding how to manage the market entry, not just on an innovation-only basis. So really being able to understand what the market needs whilst working with the rules and regulations and requirements to make sure that what we're providing is market ready. But I think, if I'm being honest, what we didn't imagine was the volume of support that would be available to us within the programme, and the fantastic institutions that we've been able to access through the programme that we just would not, coming from not far from London in the UK, actually it's a minefield understanding how to work in a different region, and you can do all the homework that you like, but actually with the support of such a team in the Sandbox, it's been incredible really how we've been able to work in the region, and we now look forward to coming through and out the other end of the Sandbox and having more of a sustainable future in the region. So, for us, the Sandbox has been really quite instrumental in our opportunity to operate in Saudi Arabia.
Excellent. I'm sure Dr. Fahad, Dr. Fatma are pleased to hear your responses. Okay, so this is the last question. We'll do it very, flash round style, and this time I'll start with Josh. So if you could think of the one thing that education sector needs to do to be able to really harness these innovations in a positive direction, what is it that you think education sector itself needs to do?
I'm biased because I work at a university, but I think research needs to lead the way. And it's a little bit troubling right now that a lot of the research on, let's say, AI, for example, there's not a lot of high quality. Our researchers recently did a review of every single AI study, and they found that only 25 of them were high quality research. So I think it's actually on the responsibility of the researchers to communicate that better to the rest of the education community. And I think it's the responsibility of the community out there that is adopting this to be open to surprising things. We don't know yet if AI really does help all learners. We don't. But there's evidence growing about which groups of learners might help and in what ways. So I think we have to get more specific about the ways that AI might actually help and what parts are actually still there for us as humans, as educators, as parents as well.
Love it. Moomin and then Sarah.
Can you hear me now?
Yes. Moomin, you're
I think
muted.
you muted yourself again, Moomin.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. The educational sector, this is important just for the AI to make easier to learn. Okay, the last, if you need to explain something, I need to teach or teacher to help me to explain something. But now for the using for the AI, I think make easier the learning journey for any student. But you need to to make sure using right way for the AI for the educational path. That's it.
Good. Sarah?
So I think the education system globally needs to work more with innovators. I think that Saudi Arabia is leading the way with this sandbox, and I think more regions should be open to it. I can directly correlate with my own region. I work with my own government, and they are slow and so heavily regulated that they stop innovation. I think our education system globally needs to work with innovators. The technology is here. We need to embrace it, but actually it's about backing the innovators rather than necessarily an individual piece of technology. Because like with the Sandbox, you work with the innovators who have the understanding and the knowledge and the appetite for innovation, and you develop something with the regulatory system that works, that's trusted, and that has a level of iteration that gets it to the quality of outcome that's required and needed. And I think that, unfortunately, a lot of the country's education systems are dragging their heels with a system that is open and should be open to improvement with technology. And instead of being fearful of it, we should embrace it and work with it. That's just my opinion.
Like it. No, I love it. So with that very inspiring call to action, Zaid, I hand over back to you. You've been fabulous, everybody.
Thank you very much, Dr. Svetlana. Today's discussion has clearly demonstrated the transformative potential of sandbox environments in driving innovation in education, and the growing role of artificial intelligence in shaping more adaptive and future-ready learning ecosystems. We are truly grateful for your presence, which enriched the quality of our dialogue. We hope the insights and perspectives shared throughout the session have provided valuable and practical takeaways. Our sincere appreciation goes to our distinguished panelists for their insightful contributions, and special thanks to our moderator, Dr. Svetlana Sabarwal, for guiding the discussion with such expertise and clarity. We also thank all participants whose presence helped make the session both meaningful and successful. As we conclude, our focus now turns to continuous improvement and growth. A survey link has been shared in the chat, and we kindly invite you to share your feedback and suggestions. Your input is invaluable as we continue to enhance our future sessions and ensure they remain relevant and impactful. On behalf of the National E-Learning Center, thank you for joining us. Goodbye.